I don't know why I did that, but I did. But I did. Hi. Got my hands behind my back, as you can fucking see. But that's not today's video. Today's video is well, I hate to break it to you, but this is a video about my ideal household. Also, it could be about me posting stuff, but we'll get into that later. Okay? Later. Anyway, let's talk about my ideal place to live. And I didn't really decide to put a title in the video, so there's that. But, I mean, there is a title, but the title of the date that this was posted in, obviously. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to mess up the year. But still, I'm going to be honest with you. My ideal place to live, at least for me, I don't know about you, at least for me, even if that means I have to live around a bunch of people, you know, even if it means I have to be around a bunch of people every day, as long as I get to own my own home, own my own freaking house, get to live there, get to have it as my property, you know, and have, you know, my business, have my space, stuff like that. Not that kind of my space, but still, have my personal space, you know, things like that, you know, have like maybe neighbors who visit me daily or whatever, that kind of thing. That would be fine. It's just the thing is that if I could live an ideal world where like the only time I go out, like out of my property is like maybe once or twice a week, or maybe just the occasional walk or something, you know, where I only go out several times a day, like out of the physical house, not off the property, but just out of the physical house, you know, where I'm only out there every couple of times or so, you know, that kind of thing, then that would be fine, you know? Like, that's how I would live. I would just live basically every day at my house, you know? That's how I would live. Now, there are some people that are like, but I always want to travel every single day. I want to go over here, next day I want to go over here, and then the day over here I want to go this way. Great for you. That's not how I am, okay? I'm like one of those motherfuckers that if, like, I could live at my home, I would. You know, if I could have one of those jobs that let me live at home, I would. You know, where, like, the only time I have to, like, leave my neighborhood, you know, that kind of thing. The only time I have to leave my neighborhood or my house is either when I feel like it or just, you know, there's something going on I have to go out to the neighborhood for, you know, every rare once in a while, you know, every couple of months or so, that kind of thing, or years. But generally, yeah, I would like to just live my life. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some days that are like, yeah, I got to leave the house, you know, but it's more of one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to be there for like a few hours and then, you know, go back home and do whatever I got to do, you know, that kind of thing. Or in the case of emergencies, go to this place or go to that place, you know, for emergency purposes. But I would just want to, like, live at the house. You know, like, one of those motherfuckers who just don't really leave the house that they live in? Like, they're completely normal and everything. They just don't really leave the house much. I want to be one of those people. You know, I'm technically one of those people, but I don't live in my own house. You know, like I have to pay rent to a landlord, and those landlords are my relatives. So I have to basically pay off my relatives just to live at a house I don't own, you know? I don't own this place. I only live in one specific portion of the house. And even then, you know, I'm not in the house too much. Either than maybe the occasional, like, day where it's, like, slow, like today, where I'm basically just kind of stuck in the house because of the weather, you know? But if I really could, if I really had the time, if I really had that kind of life where I could basically just live and, you know, day and night, live where I want to live, you know, on my property, in my own house, then yeah, I just would. You know, I just would. I would just do that every single day. Every single fucking day, you know? Don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm not antisocial or something. It's just, I want to live where I want to live, you know? Like, I'm one of those guys who just doesn't really like leaving their property outside of visiting the neighborhood, you know? But yeah, maybe the occasional trip in the town or out of town if I have to go do something. But I wouldn't really like to do a vacation, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm one of those guys who, you know, living in my home is just living in my home, you know? Like, that's where I would prefer to live, you know? Even if that means that I have to raise my children without going to some vacation or something, then so fucking be it, you know? Like, if that means they're gonna have to live that lifestyle too, growing up like that, then it's whatever, you know? Maybe they'll go for the vacation or whatever if they get sent to it. It's like, oh, their parents, their friend goes to this. Oh, like, okay, you know? Maybe when they're older, if I ever have kids, you know, when they're like in their teens or something, then maybe, you know? Or just when they're enough to get to the age of puberty, the 4th grade level, the fucking 4th grade, goddamn. Anyway, I tell you this right now, okay? I would never send my kids to a public school, let alone a private one, you know? Because in my country, the United States, private school is paid for, public school is free, at least if you're talking about taxes. And because of this, you have a lot of motherfuckers where, because we're just now starting to realize, hey, maybe the system doesn't really work out because it's not privatized, it's not like meant like down to the local level where you have like a bunch of groups, you know, basically competing to make your kids smarter and stuff like that, because you don't have a real good system with like charter schools. Basically what ends up happening is you have a bunch of motherfuckers who are sending their kids to school, and back in the olden days, they would be punishing their kids. Now they're punishing the teachers. You know, like the parents never take responsibility and just homeschool the motherfucker. Okay? Like, at least have that one relative who has, like, all the time in the world, like, my ideal way of living. Like, that kind of person that's, like, responsible, like, really responsible, and, like, can teach them a lot really early on, you know? And later on as well. You know, that kind of thing, because at least then, who's like mentally, physically, and if you want to push it that far, spiritually capable, and that kind of thing, because at least then, if they're gonna be like educated, they're gonna be educated in a way where it's like, you give them your propaganda and not the teacher's one. you know, because you have no other fuck idea what those teachers are fucking teaching to them. Like, you grew up probably in a public school. I did. I mean, I sort of did. For day one subscribers, you guys would know that I like dropped out back in high school years, and you know, it's kind of not hard to figure out why. You know, like I was just in a desperate situation, or at least I thought I was, and I ended up here making YouTube a lot. You know, that's how I get time to make YouTube videos all the time. That kind of thing. But here's another thing. Here's another fucking thing. I don't really regret it. Like, I regret it because now I might not get certain, you know, benefits or certain systems, because that's basically what it's rigged upon. There isn't really a system for, like, homeschooling as much. I mean, there is, but it's only just now starting to get developed when it comes to homeschooling. Whereas public schooling, they have yet to do that. They have yet to update it, you know? Because if public schooling was actually good and you knew what they were actually teaching, like day to day, well, at least for the days when they're in school, that would be great. That would be fucking great, because at least then you could be like, hey, don't be teaching my kid like communism or fascism propaganda, you know, don't be teaching them this bullshit, that bullshit, you know, like teach them how to read, write, do arithmetic, and like, I don't know, how to be an adult, how to do stuff that like you might need when you're an adult, hard and soft skills that they have at their current capabilities, but mostly reading, writing, and you know, historical knowledge, that kind of stuff. Yeah. I'm thinking. You know, there's so many things I would like to talk about, but I just simply can't because of YouTube. And I do want to make my own website, but it's kind of hard nowadays because, oh, you have to pay a special subscription. Oh, you have to learn it this exact way from a fucking IT guy who doesn't actually know how to make a fucking website other than hacking it, okay? Like, yeah, we know you use ChatGPT at fucking 3 a.m., okay? Okay, Liam? Do I make myself clear? I don't know why I keep making this motion. I guess I'm not really thinking about it. Well, anyway. Yeah, it just kind of sucks. You know? Like, if I could have just an at-home job, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, it wouldn't necessarily make me happier, but I would just like it because I wouldn't really have to go to places. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have to fucking, oh, hey, conveniently go to the other side of the world just to do this shit. You know? That kind of thing. But no, this world has to suck dick. You know? That kind of thing. Suck 21st chromosome retard. You know? Like, that's just where it's going. That's just where it's going. And, excuse me, that's where things seem to be. But yeah, that's just the kind of lifestyle I would live, and I would just want to live my days, you know, at my house, just doing my stuff, you know, every day, because I wouldn't want to go anywhere, you know. I would just be glad with where I lived, you know, because, again, the only time I would really go out of the house is every once in a while for, like, oh yeah, the neighborly or townly checkup, you know, like, hey, this is the update for this town, visiting in person, that kind of thing. So it's whatever. And then, as promised, I'm going to talk about my uploading, that kind of thing. So, we'll get back to the housing stuff later, so you can probably skip this portion of the video if you prefer. But yeah, I'm just going to be talking about my uploading. Okay, for those of you who are watching, especially my subscribers, you would know that I post like a lot. Sometimes I'll post like 3, 4, 9 times a day. Many times, like almost every day, with the exception of like certain weeks or whatever. But I'm trying to slow it down so that way I can have better ideas when making content, Because as much as I like to make content, I'm probably not going to post every day like I used to. Don't get me wrong, I'm probably still going to post every day, like every once in a while, but I'm not going to post every single day. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be posting every single day, because if I do that, what ends up happening is that I could run out of ideas really quickly. Because I see this with motherfuckers on the internet a lot, all the time, where when they post on social media, they'll post a whole bunch of videos, but then, like, they'll post, like, a freaking 10-hour video, and then they'll post, like, 9-hour, not 9-hour, they'll post, like, a few shorter videos in between those, and then somehow they'll still get, like, they'll either get barely any views or a bunch of views. There's, like, a whole weird spectrum thing. So I'm trying to do less content so that way people can actually have time to react to the content. But I'm still thinking of, like, posting daily, but, like, not as much, where I post, like, 1 per day or twice per day, that kind of thing. And maybe the occasional, if I have to, like, emergency update or whatever, that kind of thing. Otherwise, yeah, it's just gonna be, me doing regular stuff, I guess. And I don't know. I'm just gonna be talking about whatever I like to talk about. I'm not like one of those channels where they're focused on specific subjects. You know what I mean? Like, people who are, I don't know, focused on one specific team of one specific sport or something. That kind of thing. Oh, update this, update that. Or a news channel where it's like basically anything of this kind of news or whatever. Like those channels that are just specifically dedicated to that or this. I'm not one of those kind of guys. I'm one of those kind of guys where as long as YouTube lets me talk about it, I will probably talk about it, But I'm not going to talk about every single fucking thing on the universe. Just enough when it comes to posting. Just enough to, for my audience to have a reaction. And then I keep going from there. Just like enough time to do that. Anyway, now that that's over, let's get back onto the thing. Let's get back onto the, to the housing. Alright? We're back to the housing. Housing is one of those things where I really, really wish, like, I could live in an area that's basically the same season all year around. So it's predictable of what the day-to-day is going to be like. And a lot more, anyway. And 2, it's generally an area where if, say, a natural disaster happened, it would be very unlikely to happen in my specific area or my specific town. That kind of thing. Where it's so rare that when it does happen, it's like a historical news. It's like, oh, it happened, but it's the first time in like thousands of years. That kind of thing. Where if it does happen, because like it's just so rare that it just doesn't really happen at all. That's what I would like, a place like that, because at least then if there's gonna be a natural disaster, it's not gonna be as big of a deal. And then, I want a place that's like a really good neighborhood that will become especially good like near the end of my life. That kind of thing. Where it becomes like a really good neighborhood for like multiple generations after I die. Like it's already good. Like I want it all the way through, but I want it to get like really, really good the closer I get to death. So that way at least I can have like, not a bad place to be, And then I would also want to live in a place that's like cheap, good to live, things like that, good air quality, good plants, animals that live there. This is my ideal place, so it's not super realistic, but it is realistic enough that it probably could happen, that kind of thing. And, conflict just never really happens, that kind of thing. There's no gangs or mafias or coups or whatever the fuck. That kind of thing. Basically, I just want the kind of place where I can just make YouTube content whenever I want. That kind of thing, but it's whatever. Like there's still problems. And I'm just gonna have to live however I live. If that means I'm being homeless, then that means I'm being homeless. If that means I'm being out and about and I have to travel a lot, then so be it. But if I live in a house where it's like my ideal life, like I've been describing, then that's good. That'd be good too. I would especially want that. Because at least then I would just be able to chill around and do stuff. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean I wouldn't want people around me. I just wouldn't really want to, like, move, Like, that's just how I would live. That kind of thing. And the only time I would ever go out of where I live is in cases of, like, oh, I have to go do something that's out of town, or I have to go do something, that's, an emergency or whatever. That kind of thing. But only if I absolutely have to, There's not going to really be a want to move out, really. But don't get me wrong, I'll still, like, go outside, hang outside, do whatever, do my IRL maxing, if you will. But, I just wouldn't really be like one of those guys who would really want to leave their property, Like, I'm just not that kind of person. Like, I just wouldn't want to be that kind of person. I don't know, I just want to live where I work and work where I live, Like, I would be that kind of guy. Like, that's how I would do things, All my hobbies basically be at my house, and then just live my life just like that, From where I started till my death, Like, me, the guy who wants to live in his own house. Shocker. But again, I don't actually really live at my own house, really. I'm just renting, certain parts of this house that I'm currently in, to basically, so that way I can have somewhere to live. but I generally want to be not a renter, but a buyer. You know, I want to be a true owner of a household. You know, that kind of thing. Where the only thing I really have to worry about in my ideal household is like bills and stuff. And that would be pretty much about it. You know? That'd be pretty much about it. Like, that's how I would want to just live my life. Because, I don't know, maybe I just really would like to just have my days. Have a good day. Have a great day, maybe. Or just have a day. You know? I don't really know how else to explain it. Other than that. Well, anyway, if you guys have any opinions or thoughts, you can put them in the comment section. If you guys have any things you want to say, you can. But yeah, I'm going to wrap this video up. So, again, if you have any thoughts or opinions, you can put it in the comments. Or hey, maybe make your own YouTube video about it. I don't know. I'm not the boss of you, okay? All that I ask you do, all that I'm saying you should do, is at least think for yourself, okay? I don't care who you are, where you're from, or whatever you've done in your past, or whatever you are now, or whatever you will become. All that I ask is, regardless if you disagree or agree or neutral on any topic, even in what I said or what somebody else said or what yourself said, do you actually believe in it or not? You know, if you give yourself time, when you can give yourself time to critically think. Give yourself time to just think in general, you know, so that way you can do stuff that isn't just all vibes and emotions all the time. I'm not necessarily saying that you can't have your emotions, but when you're using your emotions to think rather than thinking for your emotions, meaning like instead of letting your emotions control you, what you should do instead is you should control your emotions, because you kind of are your emotions, but like you shouldn't let your emotions control you. You know what I'm saying? Like, just because you feel angry doesn't necessarily mean you truly are angry, you know? Or if you feel sad doesn't mean you truly feel sad. And if you're constantly having like emotional problems or like, you know, problems with your mental health or physical health or, you know, spiritual health, that's a different story. But for mental and any kind of mental or physical health of any kind, I would say check out an expert, you know, a professional expert, somebody who's professionally licensed, you know, to do that kind of stuff, like a doctor or a therapist of some kind, you know, that kind of thing, like somebody that is actually trustworthy, you know, that kind of thing, or at least trustworthy that you can get for wherever you live. I don't know where you live. I'm not you. I don't know what country you're from or nation you belong to, but, or planet you may be on. I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to end this video, and last reminder that you can comment whatever you want if you're going to comment. So, because, you know, I do believe in freedom of speech, so there's that. Anyway, I'm going to end this video, so, yeah, that's pretty much it. So, I shall see you later. Bye!